Baltimore Ravens in terms of the mock draft them. Now for them, they're getting a lot of help back this upcoming season, guys coming off of injuries. However, they had a lot of old dudes that had expiring contracts in NFL free agency. That was something that Tommy and I had talked about in the free agency preview for the Baltimore Ravens here, starting things off. Round 1, pick number 14. This is an impact move. You have them taking Jordan Davis out of Georgia. That might be the steal of the draft for a team that is in need of a defensive plug on the interior. He really tore it up at the NFL Scouting Combine. Why do you have Davis going to Baltimore?
Yeah, so I will say after this mock draft was made, the Ravens did sign Michael Pierce, who was also a nose tackle for a 3-year deal. That said, I do think there is a potential that they still sign Jordan Davis. The thing I love about Davis is that you saw how he tested at the Athletic Combine, right? I mean, running in the 4.7s at 6'6", 340 pounds. Like, I couldn't run in the 5.2s at, what I am, which is way smaller than that, right? So he's a monster, and he's so physical. I legitimately think if you want, you could maybe bring him down 20, 25 pounds and put him at like 3-tech, move him around a little bit more. Now, stylistically, he's been mainly a 2-gapper, right? So I think that's what he's most comfortable at. Keep him at that weight and let him produce there. But if the Ravens do see Michael Pierce as only a stopgap, if maybe they're not going to commit to him for the full contract, maybe you could do that, so Jordan Davis is definitely very talented and worth that pick, especially schematically if you're playing those odd fronts. That said, if Michael Pierce does change their philosophy, they signed Marcus Williams at free safety too. I think you can go edge there. If George Karlaftis is still there, maybe if Trayvon Walker's still there, you could go edge, you could go linebacker. If you're like Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean, there's a little more flexibility after what they've done in free agency, but I still think there are a lot of options.
No, that makes a ton. It's honestly like if you watch Georgia this year, which was kind of hard not to, because when you play in the SEC, they're pretty much all over your TV anyway on Saturdays. It just backed up everything he did throughout the film. And I remember watching just in the college football semi-championship, like against Michigan. He was constantly in the backfield. So I don't think this was necessarily a surprise, but when you put the number alongside of it, that was one of the most impressive combine performances I've ever seen from regardless of the position, because it wasn't just the 40, but the vert, the broad jump, like everything he did, he just dominated and almost kind of reset the standard of what you're looking for now out of a defensive tackle. Flash forward now into round 2. We kind of looked at the interior of the defensive line. Now you've got the Ravens kind of looking to bolster up their offensive line now, especially now the offensive tackles. We know how important the running game is for this team, and also trying to protect Lamar Jackson, who can obviously at any point kind of get out of the backfield and take off. But you have them at pick 45 looking at Tyler Smith, the offensive tackle out of Tulsa. How do you like kind of this fit for the Ravens? Is this kind of a surprise pick that he's actually still available here?
It might be when it all comes down to it. I look at Tyler Smith and I see a guy who could maybe potentially be one of those sleeper first-round candidates that you talk about. Because what wins over coaches, right? That mean edge at offensive tackle, and he's got that. I mean, you talk about Trevor Penning having that. I feel like Tyler Smith gets underrated a lot because he has that exact same nasty mentality where he's throwing guys down after the whistle. He's really given 110% every rep. And then on top of that too, very athletic, moves very well. I like his recovery athleticism. He gets out of his stance pretty quickly. And then also, he's got that upper body torque, that power where he can just really levy some crazy punches on guys and, kind of render them into submission. So the physical tools are all there with Tyler Smith. The mentality, the Mauler mentality that the Ravens love is there. And I think looking at Ronnie Stanley, he's a very talented guy. He's under contract until 2026, but he's missed 26 games over the past 2 seasons. So, right, availability is the best ability. And if you can't be available, then it might be wasting assets, right? So you got to look at that. I think the good thing with Tyler Smith is that he might not be ready to start right away because the synergy between his upper and lower body is not quite there yet. The sense of timing isn't quite there yet. But I do think if you don't think he can work out a tackle, I think he has the physical traits to convert to guard as well and translate well there. So I think there's some flexibility there depending on what you're going to do with Ronnie Stanley in the future. But I think Tyler Smith provides the upside and the mentality that can really help you in the long run. So
these first 2 rounds just feel like very much Harbaugh kind of guys.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you love to see it though. There's one thing I also love to see as well here. In this mock draft, 2 Georgia defenders go. Now, the Ravens have 2 round 3 picks here. One of the round picks, we talked about a player in one of the previous mock drafts, Ed Ingram, obviously guard out of LSU. I'm going to focus on round 3, pick number 99 here for the Baltimore Ravens. You have them taking Chang Tyndall, linebacker out of Georgia. So you know what? 2 Georgia guys. Might as well explain this to us a little bit as well, especially when you consider pairing another linebacker alongside Patrick Queen. We know LJ4 coming off of ACL surgery last year, was a free agent. For them, linebacker is a definite position of need for them.
This guy was a fun watch, man. I mean, you talk about explosiveness, this guy's got it. Tackling ability coming downfield, this guy's got it. He's a playmaker at the linebacker position. And Kobe Dean was the mic. He was the signal caller. So I do think if you want Channing Tindall to play that role, he was a little late to react sometimes got fooled by eye candy out there, which linebackers, they do that, right? You know, there's so much misdirection nowadays, it's impossible to be perfect. But adjusting to the NFL may be a bit of an acclimation period for him. That said, I love the tools that are there, the explosiveness, the closing speed, and the physicality at the contact point. In the box, he's a heat-seeking missile, and I absolutely love that about him. I think he translates pretty well in coverage with that closing speed and the proportional length that he has. So there's going to be an adjustment period, there's going to be a developmental period, but getting that fast pace, that fast playing guy next to Patrick Queen might allow both of them, those young players, to play a little bit freer, and especially behind that defensive line. If you get Jordan Davis and Michael Pierce up there, it's a recipe for disaster for offenses. So I'm a big fan of the potential that's there.
I think that's spot on here. Let's take a look at the rest of the picks from rounds 4 through 7 here for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, you have Bo Melton, wide receiver out of Rutgers, going there at pick 109. 10 picks later, Jesse Luketa, edge rusher out of Penn State. Obviously, Penn State is a good product of producing NFL talent. But then in round 4, you have them picking a tight end out of San Diego State, Daniel Bellinger. And then you go on there. I mean, look at all those fourth-round picks that they have. Unbelievable, 5 of them. And they're all close. So I imagine there's going to be probably a lot of teams calling to try to maybe trade up if they want to, especially in that round 4. Maybe they might want to acquire some more back-end capital, adding some cornerback depth, which that position got decimated last year. Chris Steele, cornerback out of USC. Joshua Williams, DB out of Fayetteville State. And then Michael Clemens, defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. I mean, and this one here, Ian, you really added a lot of value to the depth that the Ravens need, and I think that they can build on and continue to develop guys.
Yeah, I think especially one pick that really stood out to me in that batch of a million fourth-round picks, man. It's so hard to get through those Ravens mocks because there's so many. But I think Jesse Luketa, Penn State, was one that really stood out to me. Tyus Bowser plays that weak side linebacker role where he can rush the passer. He's a little bit smaller, but you free him up and he can do that. I think Jesse Luketa translates well too, where he can play off ball, but he's a relentless pass rusher too. So that was a fit that stood out to me right there, but a lot of fun players in that range.